Shatner Quake by Jeff Burke. Chapter 3. Dealer's Room. The room quaked and shook when the fiction bomb went off. An unnatural hush swept over the crowd as everyone waited to see what would happen next. A voice came over the room's PA system. We've just received notice that a generator blew out on one of the lower levels. We apologize for the inconvenience, but there's nothing to worry about. Thank you. Larry and Jay stood in the center of the room listening to the announcement. You think anything's wrong? Asked Jay. Nah, they just said it was a generator blowing out, replied Larry, who had already lost interest in the blast as he noticed the rare Star Trek dinosaur planet with matching 7-inch record on a nearby table. Most of the crowd was now back absorbed in the merchandise for sale. A few still milled about, unsure of what to do, and if the announcement was completely truthful. From where Jay stood, he could see through the doorways of the dealer's room and into the convention's hallways. At that moment, a young couple ran past his view, the woman sobbing, the man's eyes blank with shock. I don't know, said Jay. I've got a bad feeling. Man, chill. Check it out. Naked pictures of Nichelle Nichols. Ooh. Lobby. Emma held her breath as the display cases shook. Leading to the registration table were several massive displays of Shatner memorabilia to entertain attendees waiting in the seemingly endless registration line. When the blast happened, they all shook, and Emma had mental images of millions of dollars in collectibles being destroyed, and Natalie blaming her for the accident. Fortunately, the cases were quickly steadied and crisis was averted. Emma breathed out a sigh of relief, and she leaned back into what she thought was the wall. Instead, she leaned against a 12-foot-high display of all the various weapons that William Shatner had used in one-on-one to the death battles as Captain Kirk. It was a massive wooden display with the arms mounted on for attendees' viewing pleasure. The props had been kept in pristine condition over the years, and many were still deadly sharp. Her weight unbalanced the large display and started to sway. Emma spun around and tried steadying it, but she was not strong enough, and her actions only worsened the rocking. The Lurpa that Kirk used against Spock in Amok Time fell and missed her head by inches. That was close. All the weapons came spilling down as she was pierced in a dozen places by a variety of daggers, swords, and polearms. None of the wounds were deadly, so she was still alive. However, the many weapons had gone through her body and straight into the floor, trapping her in place. All she could do was moan through the pain paralysis. The convention attendees were too concerned with losing their place in line to come help her. The camera flashed as someone took a picture. The case rocked back and forth once more, then tipped over on her, mashing her into the carpet. Emma Lombardi was the first, but far from the last, fatality at ShatnerCon. Signing room. Shatner stood up. What the fuck was that? A wave of panic passed through those in the room. The crowd's orderly line began to dissolve, and people moved en masse to the signing table. 2 guards moved in front of the table and produced batons. They held them out and ready. Sir, please go through the door and move on to another area, barked one of the guards. Neither made any movement, so it was unclear which actually spoke. Shatner waved his arms, got here. I don't know where anything is. The guards didn't respond. There was now a solid wall of people on the other side of the table, calling out to Shatner for an autograph or asking the guards what the blast was. Where's the green room? Asked Shatner. Sir, you need to leave, ordered the guard, his voice harsher this time. Bob was still off to the side. I'll come with you, Mr. Shatner. He motioned to move forward, and the guard closest to him pivoted and shoved him hard with the baton. Bob stumbled back and fell over into the crowd, taking 2 people down with him. Shatner flinched. He didn't like the guy, but it is strange watching yourself get hurt. He went through the door and was back in the hallway. On this side of the door, he could not hear any of the pandemonium from the signing room. He looked up and down the hallways, but he couldn't remember which direction he'd come from. He pulled out his cell phone and scrolled through the contacts, found Natalie's number. He hit dial, put the phone to his ear. Nothing happened. He looked at the display. It said calling, but he didn't hear any ringing. He hung up and tried again, this time waiting while the display read calling. Still nothing. Shit. With only 2 choices, he picked left and started walking. After rounding a corner, he came to a door that opened to a stairwell. It only went up, but since he really didn't have a better option, he went up them. The first landing came to a door and went through it. He stood in a giant open room filled with glass displays. Shatner walked to the case next to the fire exit he'd just come through. It was filled with small microphones, the kind you clip onto a shirt lapel. Each one had a place card with a show name and a date on it. It took a moment before the significance dawned on him. The cards were all the shows that he was a guest on, and the date was when he'd been there. The microphones were the very mics he wore on the shows. He turned around and looked at the other cases. They held costumes, props, toys, and other memorabilia. Shatner was in a museum dedicated to himself. There were 6 other people in the area Shatner was in, and they were now all staring at him. Shatner quickly moved to the far end of the room, where there was a doorway leading into the museum's next exhibit. There was also magazine racks set up holding a display of convention programs. Their fronts were a full-cover image of Shatner with his charming smile. Shatner grabbed one of the programs. He held it up to his face to block people's views as he quickly moved deeper into the museum.